Hey YouTube, welcome back to the channel. If you haven't been following along, Chevy and I have been working on this 1972 Blazer. Looking to do a complete nut and bolt frame off restoration. Fixing a lot of the metal work so that I can start hopefully this weekend, maybe next weekend, with body filler, primer, and block sanding. In this video, we're going to talk about splitting the tailgate in two pieces to get all the dents out. We're going to talk about rebuilding hinges. We're going to talk about fixing door gaps. We're going to talk about seam sealers, self-leveling, heavy-bodied seam sealers. And then we're also going to dive into how I'm converting this non-factory AC Blazer into factory AC Blazer. So stay tuned. Great episode. And before we jump into it, I just want to give a shout out to the James Campbell High School out in Hawaii. I hear that those guys subscribe and like and follow. So thanks. Appreciate it. Hope you enjoy this episode. There we go. So that dent's gone. And this tool's nice because it doesn't really pull it out like those pins do. Keeps it kind of flush. So anyways, I'll be doing that along the whole thing. So I don't want to bore you with that. I'll come back when it's done. There we go. After, shoot, maybe an hour and a half, I got most of it out. Was pretty thick. Or a pretty big dent, but it's out now. I've ordered a shrinking disc, attaches to the sander. It's pretty much just, it rubs metal on metal and it'll shrink that, because right now it's got a little bit of waviness in it, you can see, so you go through the light, and that shrinking disc will take that right out of there. Tailgates. So what we've got here is a 1972 tailgate that's kind of rust free, except it's got a big dent there. It's got a dent, a lot of cracking there. It's got a dent with a crack there. It's got a crack there. It's got a dent there. It's got a huge dent here. And if you look down the side, it's got like another dent there. And this dent here actually bent it. So I was looking online. You can buy these remanufactured for $450. Or if somebody's got a used one that's in great shape, you know, they'll let you have it for the easy price of $1,000. And if you've been watching my channel, I don't like to waste money, and I feel that's just wasting money. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut all the spot welds off and then slice it right down the top, pull this apart, straighten out all the metal, re-weld it back together. So I've sliced up the top of it. There's no spot welds up here. I think they just bent it over and then inserted those things in the side. So it's not a straight cut. It doesn't matter. It's all getting welded back together at some point. So as long as it's cut, that's what was important to me. So now I just gotta wait for my batteries to charge up. But then I'm gonna cut these spot welds. Anywho, so spot welds along the edges. Then I discovered spot welds along the middle. Got those all ground out from the other side, and I think it's ready. Yeah, it's ready to come off. So I'm gonna go ahead and just pull this shell off. Kind of show you the inside, right? There's some rust in there. Ooh, there's a rust hole. I thought this was rust free, but there must have been water sitting in at the bottom here. Here's the tailgate. You can kind of see within the light just how bent up it is. But a lot easier to fix now that it's not attached to this part. I'll clean this, I'll sandblast both sides, coat it appropriately, and get it all back together. All right, here we go. I'm pretty excited about this. I think it's gonna turn out fantastic. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this big hammer, because I like it, because it's got a big wide face on it there. And I'm just gonna pound in, I'm gonna turn this around so it's flat, and I'm gonna pound in between the letters. See if we can get some of this going, getting it straightened out here. Super excited. We'll see how this goes. Hopefully it's not too loud. Here we go. Yeah, what a big difference already. Look at that. It's pretty awesome. So the O's got a little bit of a crease. Top of the V's got a little bit of a crease. And I'll be working those with the old hammer and dolly. Okay, there's gonna be a lot more of that, and I'm not gonna bore you with watching me just keep this thing starting to look amazing. If you look here, just a few minutes, maybe 10 minutes of pounding on this thing, you'll see that a lot of those dents, let me see if I can adjust this camera. A lot of these dents have come out. You can see this is where you got the oil can situation. Either it needs to be bent or shrunk. You're gonna get some dents. A lot of tappy with the old hammer and dolly. But here we go, my least favorite activity, sandblasting. I'm gonna coat the insides of these with Rust-Oleum and then weld it back together. This tailgate has been welded back together, and the creases, the dents, the holes, the tears, it's all gone. I got the tailgate, it's put back on. So ideally, this is what I want the gap to look like, right? It is tight from the bottom all the way to the top. Yeah, it's a little bumpy. We'll fix that out in body work. However, if we go over to this side, you're gonna see it starts off kind of nice at the bottom and it goes to very big at the top. That's unacceptable. So okay, here we are. Got the tailgate primered and direct metal epoxy primer. And we got this lined up. It's a little tight down here. I'm gonna end up shaving, I think, the skin of the hatch there, tailgate, to get that closed up. But it looks pretty good. Come over here. I was able to get this side pulled in, and it looks pretty good, except I'm gonna be dealing with this, so it bows out a little bit. So got to tackle that. I don't think I'm gonna be able to pound that in, so another challenge. Okay, how do you put factory air conditioner in a 1972 Blazer? Well, that's simple. You just got to go through to your firewall, and you get the 2 holes here for the heater, and you got to change it. You got to change that hole to look like that hole, and you got to know somebody on Facebook Marketplace that is reliable and sells you parts like that. Got the outside part, I got the inside part. I got all the little tiny parts, condenser, and then he throws in this piece of metal, which is awesome. And we'll go ahead and start cutting, get that thing in there. Here's a piece from the donor truck, just kind of fastened to the outside of the cab. I went into the inside of the cab and I marked where the old heater's vents. This one lines up perfectly. We're gonna end up cutting that off. And I lined up where the hole is currently on the firewall. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut out away from that, up to here, and then figure out, I got a little close here when I cut it off. Kind of mad at myself about that, but that's fine. It's still, I still got a little bit in there. Okay, so what I've done here is I've cut out enough of the firewall to make my donor piece fit, right? Because you got the lip and it's offset a little bit. So I went ahead and sandblasted all the paint and rust off of the donor piece, and I pre-drilled some holes, some pilot holes, and I'm gonna pop-right that into place. Okay, here we go. Kind of the last step. So we got it, the firewall cut. I got the donor metal cut. It's fitting pretty good. Okay, we're all tacked up in there now. I'm gonna sand that down, grind it down. Okay, the donor metal is in, welded in. Looking pretty good. So now we will make some holes. I'm gonna make a template on the inner air box where the studs go through. This one's broken. We'll figure that out. And then get the holes for the outside, get those made, and we'll be done. Now we're on to the side vents. It fits and it accommodates this curve right here from the glove box. Problem is you really can't stick it in there and get an accurate measurement. So I kind of created this little cardboard deal, molded it while I was on there, put it up in there, drew out a circle. I mean, it's metal. If I cut too much, I can always weld some back in there. I really don't want to do that. So here we go. Okay, here we are. We've got this hinge off of the Blazer. This is the top hinge. And they've incorporated this little catch here to keep the door from opening up too wide. And I've got my rebuild kit here, and here's one of the pins from the rebuild kit. And as you'll see, it's considerably longer. So now I've got a decision to make. Either I cut it shorter, then maybe try and taper it to look stock, or just cut it flush, don't care. Then even the head size, I don't know if you can, you probably can't see that. Let me look if I can do a fair comparison. The head size is smaller, and I don't know, you know, maybe it's me. I'm just trying to like rebuild this Blazer to factory specs, and I don't like these pins. So what I'm going to try and do is pound this pin out, and hopefully the pin is in good shape. And it's just these brass bushings here that have worn out, because I see one here and I see one there. So I'm going to pound these out, and then we'll take a look. We'll check back in a second. All right, we got that thing pounded out. Here is the original pin. Beautiful. It's not worn at all. I'm so happy. And it's got the bigger head compared to its longer aftermarket brother here. Yeah, no comparison. So it's a bigger head. It's original. It's in great shape. And I started looking at this hinge, pull it apart, and here's what's worn out. This bushing right here. And the crazy thing is, it's plastic. Plastic on the bottom, plastic on the top. And like General Motors, did you not think that was gonna wear out? Wow. I don't know, maybe it was cheaper. Maybe it was, you know, a few cents cheaper than using brass. But if somebody can explain to me why General Motors would use plastic bushings instead of brass, I would love to know. Please comment. But anyways, I'm gonna pull these out. I'm gonna put the brass ones in. I'm gonna tap this back in so we can get that door aligned. The bottom one that's the other weird thing. The top hinge moved around, the bottom hinge doesn't move at all. So I just may leave the bottom hinge alone at the moment and then just rebuild it as I get ready to paint. But stay tuned, let's get that door mounted and squared away. Okay, here we go. I got those, all right, I'm gonna say plastic, but they're probably nylon. I don't know, is nylon considered plastic? I have no idea. But here's what was in that hinge. And here's what you get when you buy an aftermarket hinge rebuild kit, these brass bushings. They're not as long, which I would even question, like, why not? Whatever, not my place to question. But I'm gonna jam these in there. And all right, so I'll give General Motors, like I just bashed them a second ago, I'll give them some credit. This Blazer is 50 years old and they didn't wear through. But however, I got another video of a K10 I rebuilt, 77, and the bushings, they were wore through. So we're putting the brass ones in. I'm gonna pound the original pin back in there. We'll put it back on the door with this Blazer back in, and we'll get the door back in, and hopefully we'll get this thing lined up and ready to go. Stay tuned. Okay, we're gonna put this hinge back on. You can see I got the fine, shiny brass hinges, bushings back in the hinge. And I'm gonna bolt this to the door. And here's something I thought was pretty funny. So to me, in General Motors, you got one engineer. He's like, dude, we need 4 holes for this hinge. And then he gets outrolled by somebody else. Like, no, I disagree. I think we only need 3. So there's 4 holes in the door. There's only 3 nuts, and there's 3 holes in the hinge. So I don't know who you are out there, but if you're watching my videos, you got overruled, dude or girl. Actually, it was probably the 60s. You got overruled, dude. And yeah, somebody decided 3 bolts were enough, not 4. That's crazy. We're on the passenger side, and this is a reproduction Fender. And the way I can tell is when I started sanding it, I didn't see the green original, and instead I'm seeing this black. That EDP coating is put on replacement parts, and this thing is, the metal's cracking everywhere. It's I don't know, I don't think it's a genuine General Motors aftermarket part. And the other thing, and hopefully this, you know, I'll prove myself right, but I got a decent gap on top, but as it gets closer to the bottom, I've done everything to try and close that gap with enlarging holes and spacing this, spacing that. I cannot get that gap to close. So today, went and bought this original Fender off of Marketplace. It's got some putty in the bottom. That's typical, fixing some dents. But there's no rust, holes, and we'll see if an original Fender fits better, fixes that door gap better than this one here. Okay, got the replacement Fender on there. Slightly different shade of green, but the gap on top, pretty solid. And then down here, where it meets the rock panel, it's nice and tight. I do have a little bit of a gap right through here, but nothing like was just on there. And I think it's mostly because the door is a little crooked. The bottom front needs to come in a little bit. But this aftermarket Fender, yeah, I mean, they're good, right? You could buy them, they're rust free. But like, one thing I noticed that just bugged me, it just, I don't know, maybe it's in my head, but it just feels thinner and flimsier as compared to the originals. So there we go. Continue on closing those gaps. Okay, here's a situation where we've got pretty much an ideal gap. It's probably a little over a 3/16 there. And as you come down to the end, it's a pretty big gap. When I installed this quarter panel, or this rocker panel, I don't know, you know, it fit as good as it's gonna fit. So this is the problem with working with aftermarket factory panels. The shit just never really fits right. So anyways, what I'm gonna do here is I got this 3/16" bar, and I bent one side, so I'll cut it to get that same angle that's on the end of the door there. And I just use my TIG welder, and I'm just gonna kind of weld it to the bottom of the door. And I'll shave it skinnier as it gets to this side, but I'm gonna maintain that roundness on the bottom. So once it's body worked and painted, you'll never know that I extended the bottom of that door by 3/16. And then that'll give me the same size gap clear across the bottom. I don't know if you can see it. I went ahead and tapered this rod down to a point using a flapper wheel on my grinder. So now it's to the point now where it can go ahead and tack that thing on there. Here's that bar tack welded in there. And I just checked it with my official 2 stir stick gauge. And the gap clear across is pretty much the same all the way across. So that bar, I'm gonna pull this door off and TIG weld that bar in there. All right, got that door done. I didn't record it, not sure why I didn't, but just imagine, you know, weld that rod all the way across, and then grind, made it smooth, and that panel turned out beautiful. No more big gap in the back, so I'm very happy with how that turned out. If you're wondering on this side, can't even really tell unless, you know, you get your tape measure out, look at that side, because it gets bigger as it comes down here. And I'm talking about this part right here. So it came out great, nice and strong. I've already put the sealer in there, and this thing's gonna be ready to go. Hey there, I want to thank you for watching. Really appreciate the views. And as always, like and subscribe, and stay tuned. The next video, I got the body back up on a rotisserie, fixing all the small minor dents, dings, and getting it ready for color. So on this one, I'll be painting color on the bottom, in the tub, on the outsides, everywhere. So stay tuned for another exciting video from Fulton's Garage.